Dream Game is an exploration game inspired by Myst, Yume Nikki, ARGs, and old adventure games. You are a sleepwalker, going by the name Nashatra. Nashatra? Nashatra. We'll go with Nash. The game opens you up to your bedroom. For this video, I'm only going to be exploring the surface level dreams and overall my thoughts on each dream and the game. Throughout this game, you will be exploring every location you are thrown into, including the real world, or Windy Island. In your toolbar, you have a crowbar, emotes, combat actions, and a pool tool. Your main tool of use will be the crowbar, but right now, the crowbar doesn't do a whole bunch. In the cabin, you'll most likely find a code and a note. The note shows us our full name, and after finishing it, I unintentionally discover a speed glitch rather akin to Yume Nikki. I didn't think much of it at first, but it became very useful later on for exploring. I find another code within this tower. Heading outside, the area reminds me a lot of Snowy World, a silent place where nothing can really harm you with peaceful music to accompany it. There's also this red horse. He's a goofy fella. There's a windmill off in the distance. Entering it shows me what are basically morphs, and I imagine that these represent Nash. In the following room is a book, which in short, talks about how Dionysus and Apollo are symbolic for things such as abstract concept, natural phenomena, and characteristics of the human spirit, such as dispersion, delusion, and to counteract that, integrity, self-awareness, and strive for self-value. Rather odd, but maybe it's for something much further down the line in this game. There's nothing else too big to explore around the outside, so I head towards the water to see if I can swim across. Except the water isn't solid, and I am now drowning. I guess hell is what awaits me now. Recovering from that minor hiccup, I checked the outside again at a few more things I didn't get a look at. Finishing that up, it's finally time I begin my descent into the dream world. The first dream world I entered is Ocean Lab. It's a very bleak and flat world with a few bits of underwater foliage. Also, the crowbar works now. It's basically this game's version of the eye palm effect. My first thoughts when roaming around this world is that it's certainly very open. I mention this because it made me wonder if there'd be something I could interact with in some obscure random spot like in Yume Nikki. Past me finally figures out how the combat tool works and I approach what I assume is the lab. This area doesn't make a whole lot of sense right now, but a lot of games will throw you into your first area where you need items from later to fully explore, so I move on. I encounter these two red fellows. I don't know what they're doing, but dragging them around has some rather odd effects. After a bit, they settle down, but only because one of them impaled themselves at a piece of coral. It's probably best I walk away and ignore that. Here I find some sort of cannon. Except I didn't know how it worked and fired myself in a random direction instantaneously. But at least now I know what my main form of movement here will be. I make my way over to this tall structure in the distance. Upon reaching it, it appears I can't access the upper layer of it. So I head over to this cannon to fire myself towards it. That went well. Here's a blue fellow. He's rather peaceful. I prepared to fire the cannon but notice a weird white pillar. Intrigued by it, I fire myself towards that direction. Turns out it's some ghostly fellows. No idea what they're doing, but I won't question it. I come across another structure. This time I have a better idea on how I'll use the cannon and fire myself to land on top. At first I wasn't sure how to get in, but then I notice an opening in the side. I line up my shot and fire. Okay, fourth time's the charm. There we go. I interact with the floating item and unfortunately this relic has an ancient aura of menace infused into it as my monologue tells me I back away in fear and weakness, when I don't think my avatar even understands what either of those concepts are. But this begs the question, why am I fearful and weak in the presence of this relic? Is it fear of the current unknown and my weakness to understand this world? Am I fearful that I've slipped into an eternal sleep? I'm not sure. I head back to that weird stack of buildings to get atop of it. It took a few tries, but after a minute or two I finally land in a good spot. I interact with the compass and it tells me it has added coordinates to my HUD. One problem is that they don't appear until I actually die. I think I've explored all there is to explore here, so I may as well head back to my bed and return back to reality. But reality seems to be rather spooky right now. I'm gonna be honest, this actually creeped me out the first time. That eerie sense of not knowing if you're alone in the dark. I could have given a lame narration on how I simply walked away or didn't bother searching, but truth be told, I was too creeped out to venture during this darkness. I head back inside and find the basement stairs. I can't see, and this did not help the creepiness of the outside darkness. With enough jumping though, I was able to escape and find myself in some kind of basement cafe. Or bar. Or whatever it is. There's also a near infinite present dispenser.
Shake, shake.
Joyous. I finish up down there and return back to bed, heading back into the dream world. Keeping to the water theme, well, that's rather interesting. I take a leap of faith and find myself in some complex made of stone. There's 2 stores, some colors on the wall, a bathroom, and darkened rooms. After some searching and playing with boxes, I notice there's a path to get onto the main island. I follow the path and are finally greeted with emptiness. Which, I mean, isn't really a surprise in a dream mode, but it's almost too empty. It isn't helped by the tombstones, albeit I expected way more seeing as the name is, Graveyard Sea. I find a contraption but can't activate it. I look around the empty buildings in case there's anything to grab, but nothing. So I head down towards the dock and find a few things. A shop, a vending machine, and gum machine. In this shop, I can use this game's second currency, reposes. Reposes? Let's say reposes. But I'm a bit poor at the moment. I head back outside to buy myself a boat and venture the colourful sea. Along the way, I found a lonely house, giant amber-coloured bricks, and... what on earth am I looking at? This appears to be some kind of volcano-like structure with whatever those things are. I make my way up to see if they chit-chat, but all they say is hola. Even the orbs at the top only say hola. May as well take one with me. This time, I encounter another island with a single grill. There's also another volcano-like structure, except they're green this time. I also failed to watch where I was looking and fall into the sea. Recovering from that mistake, I head back to the dock to buy another boat for treasure. I collect a green Ola orb to take with me, and I end up falling again.
Why are we still here?
I don't have enough studs to buy another boat. Figure I may as well head to bed and wake up for this travesty. I arise, and to my surprise, it's still very dark outside. This time, however, I swallow my fear and run into the darkness, coming across the windmill again. I don't know why I went here though, because nothing is different. I go back to the cabin where my bed awaits me, to fall into the next dream. This dream world has one of the more interesting backgrounds in my opinion. Just the weird empty abyss with these strange ball formations in the distance. It's just so different to the past dream worlds and I really like it. That being said, I immediately make my way to the platforms and proceed up the mountain. On my way, I get sent flying off the mountain by these rather hostile bunnies. It's definitely best I try to avoid them. I continue up and what I thought would give me a path ends up actually trapping me. Not entirely pleasant, but nothing the crowbar can't fix. A few more platforms and traps later and I reach the top. It's dull, dead, and strange. There's dead trees, a pillar with a lit fire and symbol, and this weird structure. I get a view of the world around me and it really does give you a sense of uneasiness. A giant empty void with these far off structures or formations you'll never reach. I return to the bedroom and start platforming downwards. This ends me up in a rather odd room. There's 2 mirrors here, a pool of this blue substance, and a skeleton. I make the 0 IQ move to jump in and suffer a very obvious fate. Not wanting to do that again, I head right this time. Through these platforms I find myself in some... I'm not sure what to call it. Is it an ocean-like monument? An outpost? I don't really know. It certainly ain't stopping my looting and plundering habit. Looking upwards for a brief moment, I notice there are other doorways, meaning I'm able to get a view from much higher. I head back out to continue my way up to find these doorways. Too bad I'm absolutely getting bodied by these 2 bunnies, ultimately losing my speed bonus. At the second doorway, there's not really a lot to do here, so I head back out to continue upwards. After that hindrance, I end up at the 3rd doorway, but it's certainly far more dangerous than the previous 2. The same blue substance from earlier is present here. But hold on, why is it here? Wasn't it at the lower part of this stone pillar, this giant height? Maybe it's best I don't look too far into it. I notice in the distance there's this whole building. I wish I could travel to it, but I simply don't have anything to do so with. With my lack of options, I figured there's nothing else left for me here. So I head back to bed to dream for another day. This time around, the fog has subsided, most likely meaning dawn is approaching. I go back to searching around the cabin and find a sword, though I wager I'm one worthy to wield such a weapon. That sucks. But maybe later I'll be able to wield it. To cut the whole waffle, I pretty much just explored to see if I missed out on anything, but there's still a whole bunch of nothing even when on top. There is a light in the distance, but I can't reach it. With nothing else to do, I return to my slumber. Heading outside, I'm greeted by a rather depressing, bleak and hopeless looking location. A bit blunt, but that's just how I saw it as. In the first building was some blanket armor. It gave me more maximum health. There's also a fireplace. It doesn't do a whole lot, but it's neat. I step back outside and find a zombie looking individual. At first I thought it'd be an enemy, but turns out I can talk with him. His name is GVR by the looks of it. I ask him why is he here all alone, though he tells me he isn't alone, and they hide underground. Who's hiding underground? The monsters under my bed or something? I travel around the edges of the outpost and end up getting gunned down by the watchtower guard. I head back there to take a closer look at him, and he is indeed another zombie looking guy. Checking back with GVR, I'm able to talk to him again, but this time I ask him where are we? He tells me that his kind of people aren't very friendly with visitors, which would explain the on-site mentality. Knowing this, I decide to make a run for it to see if anything lies beyond, but I get dragged back into the map as I wager I shouldn't run away. On my way around the outpost, I find another zombie person. His name is... Ilovy? He mentions I look like the boss's replacement, and I suppose I'm just going with it as I'm just gaslighting this guy live, straight to his face and everything, even with a fake name to throw in some injury. I move back up to the top of the outpost, unsure what I can really do here except wait till I can talk to Ilovy again. After waiting a bit, I ask him for a way inside. He tells me a rumor that there is a way in, so I start searching. I eventually find the entrance within the stream of water, totally not by abusing shift lock, and hop in. First thing that caught my attention was the map. Originally, I thought it was a map of the inside, but what I'll assume instead is that it's most likely every single outpost and the outpost I'm currently at. I'm serious, I went back and counted, we are outpost number 18. It's here I find who's hiding underground. These entities are pretty violent, but slow. I make quick work of this one and obtain a keycard. I get attacked by 2 more and suffer an untimely demise. Going back in, I start searching around this office area, and I sure as hell am glad I ain't an office worker with these guys roaming around. I travel through a hall and find some structures. 2 say out, 1 says in. Not sure what they do, but the button certainly doesn't do anything. I make my way through a tunnel and find myself in a whole bunch of rooms. Or dorms. I say dorms because there are zombie people sleeping in bathtubs. Not sure why that's their bed, but I won't judge. There's also a red wall passing by every now and then, and frankly I'd rather not get crushed by a speeding wall. In one dorm, I notice a hole in the floor. I fall into it and find another zombie person wide awake. I'm not really interested in what he's saying, and I've knocked him out. Anyways, I give the sign a quick read, and according to this, the zombie people sleeping in the bathtubs are actually cardboard images. Wait, cardboard and water? Not the brightest idea, but I guess it works. On this sign, the key takeaway is escape and not being visible to the outpost. With what this sign tells us, Kaboom wants to escape with a few of his zombie people. I'm not too sure if GVR and Islavi are in on this, but seeing as they were the only ones awake when it's currently night in this world, I'd imagine they are. Feeling bad for what Fisher workers are missing out on, I figure I could compensate for knocking Kaboom out by finding a pickaxe. I'm just gonna tell you straight up, I did not find a pickaxe. I looked around some more and found another note. This note is nonsense at first, and I brushed it off as so, but giving it a read while going through the footage, it actually gives some more insight into this outpost and these people. These workers are most likely slaves, or treated as such. Their boss has access to every computer, and from the rooms we briefly saw upon entering the outpost, it definitely does look like one of those typical office spaces devoid of any life. Down this note, it mentions something as simple as 3 frogs gets the others all happy. But the writer of this note can simply use their brain. Their imagination can show them an image of a frog, of any color, any size, and any form. Then they mention Kabom, likely Kaboom as he's the smartest worker here, and teaches them the word rot. The writer feels that they have rotten themselves, and the others, but it is not understanding. This green substance outside is most likely the rot. This world seems polluted by the rot. At the bottom it mentions where are the frogs I see with my brains, implying the natural life here is most likely gone or close to extinct, further backed by the former paragraph stating the natural environment needs to give us attention to end the rot, making this a pretty dystopian dream world all things considered. Moving away from that rather poorly written note, I find the boss's office. He seems to be asleep though, so there's not really much I can do here, let alone get a word out of him. I find some stairs leading to a whole bunch of platforms, but I'll come back later. I find another note talking about the teleporters, most likely referring to those in and out structures I found earlier. In this room, there's a blue fellow. Don't know why he's here, but I said hello to him. Back at the platform area, I wager it's time I make my way across, making sure I find a good path to ensure I don't butt my head and fall into the abyss. Finally making it to the entrance, I catch the name of this place, Robber's Fate. Not what I'd name a cafe, but everyone has different tastes. To my surprise, there's a non-zombie person here, albeit she seems to be a recurring character. My experience in the bathroom was beyond unpleasant as there wasn't even any toilets to use. The in and out structures are also here, but alas they still don't do anything. Not really having anywhere else to go, I use my crowbar and return to bed, awaiting my return to normality. Editing me here. When I went back to this game to quickly get some spare footage, I went back to Outpost 18 and realized there was another portion of the whiteboard I could click on. This pretty much confirmed that GVR and Islavi are planning an escape. According to the writing, slime seemed to be a problem to Fisher, most likely spawned from the rot that has taken this place over. Another thing to add is that there are buttons within the boss's office. This granted me easier access through the outpost and allowed me to assist Kaboom in finding his pickaxes. Kinda sucks I didn't find these on my first playthrough, but you can't play a game blind for the first time with perfection. And if anything, it's interesting finding things you missed on your second go around. Anyway, that's all from me. Carry on. Yeah, we're cutting straight to the next dream mode. I didn't even bother to search Windy Island this time around. Immediately, this place makes me very curious and interested. It has a cold, Eastern Asian look to it. You walk atop these glass platforms with all these frozen looking trees to the side. I head towards the middle and find a timer, most likely the timer for how long someone has been within Tenmu. Downstairs shows me some displays with green trees. Are these the only natural trees in Tenmu? It seems that way as everything is cold and frozen. I make my way towards this exit and hop onto this platform, but the platform must have thought I was your mom. I did it again just for safe measures. If you can't tell by the background footage, I was pretty lost, and didn't really know what else I could do here. So, as per usual, I head back to my bed and into the real world again. This time around, I wanted to find the other codes. as I notice this wall looks rather empty and there'd surely be other codes. Using my amazing ability of holding W and M2, I begin searching around the island. To put it short, since this was like 20 to 30 minutes of searching, I found my first code behind the bar. I clicked the discolored brick outside but didn't know what it did. I found my second code behind a fountain. I found the third code behind... what even is this thing, a dresser? I found my fourth code within this passageway, which most likely opened from that brick I clicked, and found my last code on these wooden beams in the toilet. Having every code, I take a look at all these pulls from earlier. I input the corresponding numbers of one of the codes on the walls, a sound plays, meaning something must have happened, and to see if it worked, I head to bed. It seems to have worked. I was now in Tenmu, albeit a much darker Tenmu. But I didn't feel like doing a whole lot of nothing here, so I went back to my bed to return to my cabin life. Skipping Windy Island again, I rush out of my bedroom and find the tunnel. In this tunnel is an arcade machine, a couch, and some kind of bouncing light. I might have stumbled into a gamer cave, so probably best I take my leave. This tunnel leads to a backpack display and a lantern battery dispenser. I honestly don't know what I need it for, but maybe it'll have a use later. I find yet another tunnel entrance, except this one has a door. Entering it teleports me to another area of the world, and this area is actually so well made. This area overall just feels very peaceful, and while it is pretty dark, I think this area is way more of a vibe than the previous dream worlds we've been to. I head towards this cabin off to the side and find a pie hiking poster. There's a competition going on tonight. Don't know if I can watch it, but it'd be cool if there was some kind of cutscene of it. Also, there's this guy. His name is Richardson. He gives me a whole story about some friend stuff, but I frankly didn't pay much attention. If I missed some integral lore detail, you can point it out to me in the comments. Something of note is that there was a transparent lamp on this desk. Could this be where the battery goes? I checked back to see if my assumption was correct, but upon entering the door with the lamp battery did not follow. Opting not to find a way to force the battery into this part of the swamp, I explore around and observe the mass amounts of foliage and overall the interesting design of this dream world. Before I return to my bed, I drop a donation of 5,000 studs. I now await for my awakening. Back in the real world, I ready the pulls in the same order I did last time to see if I can force myself to Tenmu again. Earlier throughout Tenmu, you might have noticed these orbs floating around the place. When I first arrived into Tenmu, I didn't think much of them, but this time, I decided to see if they actually did do anything. It did something alright. It teleported me to a locked room with a keypad that has an ID on it. I pull up my browser and type the ID in, but no result. It's most likely some sort of item. I try it again, and to my surprise, I'm shown a keypad asset, along with its default code. I input the code and the door light behind me goes green, albeit it doesn't open. Teleporting back and heading outside again shows me that Tenmu seems to have been activated. The lights are on and now there's more of these orbs. I jump into this one but it leaves me stranded. This one doesn't do anything and this one teleports me to an iceberg. In the middle of nowhere. I can't necessarily do anything out here, so I hop into the water and find myself on a shore. Only option now is to simply follow along the snowy plain. I can now say with certainty that this reminds me of the snowy world. Completely peaceful, but pretty empty. Albeit there's some floating islands to accompany my walk into nothingness. That is until I notice something different floating in the air. Looking back down shows me some stone formation and a gigantic structure in the distance. It's a town or village of some sort, with 2 chairs overlooking the entire thing. Is this some kind of prison? I check the giant structure to see if anything is inside, but nothing. So I hop down and end up dying. Either to fall damage, or the fence, or probably both. There's another building within this part of Tenmu that has a flowing stream on it. It's probably a teleporter, so I try to make my way up to it and yep, it teleports. Except, this is the same area I overlooked before. I'm genuinely curious as to what this place is. It doesn't really strike me as a village, more like a settlement of some sort. I go through a doorway and find some pies. It's a pie hiking tool for Tenmu. Is this where pie hiking originates from? Would that also imply that Pink Swamp and Tenmu are connected to each other? It seems to be that way. I find another teleporter at the end of this corridor and it takes me to that ice platform room from way earlier. Yeah, I'd rather not. I head back up and find a pie hiking door. This takes me to what seems to be a training course. I practiced my aim for a bit before beginning to learn how to pie hike. I'll speed the footage up as it's not too interesting, but it's certainly a creative way to have a self-made parkour in a game. Finishing that awarded me a badge. Nice. Having completed that and earning my badge of approval, I go back to the ice platform room to put my pie hiking knowledge to the test. It didn't work. To save you 12 minutes of your life, here's my successful attempt through the platforms. My prize was a net? Well, I suppose I can catch those bunnies now. I felt that there was more to Tenmu now that I had access to pie hiking. I go through the iceberg teleporter and try to hike across the water, but no luck. I start traveling down the shore and find that it continues going left. I try pie hiking again, but I mess up a throw. This time I decided to take a shortcut to follow along the shore, to see if anything was along the way. And either through some dumb luck or coincidence, there was something. Some kind of vessel sitting in the water off in the distance. I followed down the shore to try getting a closer start to the vessel, but it didn't really help much. To save you 14 minutes of failure, I find an efficient way to cross the water and make it to the boat. I enter the boat and finally put my mind at ease after all that hiking. It's a pretty spacious boat, and looks geared for combat if anything. I mean, that was probably obvious from the teeth, but oh well. This old man is named Old Nicky. Crazy. My character sums up my thoughts with a lot of these dream worlds. According to Nicky, access to Tenmu is forbidden, but here I am anyways. Also, I'm using a false name again. Something that was strange to me is that I wagered he was a soldier from Fisher, but unlike the Fisher folk, Nicky wasn't a zombie person. He most likely didn't even know of the rot that's consuming the outposts. Also, this girl is here somehow. I look around the boat to see if there's anything I can take, but there's not a whole bunch. There is a mini golf course terminal, but according to Nicky it needs a repair. Finally feeling satisfied that I explored a whole lot of Tenmu that I didn't explore earlier, I take my leave and view the boat one more time. I suppose it's got a Fisher look to it. But now, it's time I teleport back to the bed and wait to rise one last time. So that was the surface level of Dream Game. I have a lot of thoughts on it, but I'm primarily positive towards this game. It definitely did not take Yume Nikki as its primary source of inspiration, as I think the game took way more inspiration from Myst and adventure games as a whole. And to summarize why I think that, in Myst, you are an explorer who has the ability to write books that serve as a link to other worlds. And in this game, it's basically confirmed that the dream worlds are connected with each other. But this is where things get a bit tough to piece together. Is the reason these worlds exist because of the lone player's dreams? Or do these worlds exist in a different plane of existence altogether? We'll call it the dream plane, that can only be accessed via dreaming, somewhat independent of the thought and will of the real world player. I say that because we clearly do have an effect in each dream that lingers, whether it's object placement or tools we've picked up. What leads me to believe that these worlds are connected are Outpost 18, Old Nicky, and the pie hiking poster in the Pink Swamp. Old Nicky was a member of Fisher, and we've seen what has happened to the people of Fisher due to the effects of the rot. The pie hiking poster in Bridgerton's cabin ties back to Tenmu and where we first learnt about pie hiking, which can imply pie hiking is a common sport within Tenmu. We're just not sure who participates in it, as we have been alone throughout these dream worlds for quite a long time. Dream Game follows less on the aspect of finding items and tools and more about the puzzles and secrets within each dream world. And unlike Yume Nikki, your tools that you obtain within the dreamscape do carry over to reality. giving me further reason to why I believe these aren't dreams, but locations situated within a dream plane. You are technically fully awake and are aware within these dreams, and while I'm not sure if I could argue the same logic for Yume Nikki as, well, I could argue the exact same logic, I think it's way more apparent in Dream Game than it is in Yume Nikki, because honestly that game is nothing but interpretation. I like this take. While I'm not too fond of pie hiking and I fear that the game ends up relying on it more than it should, I think this game was way more interesting than what I thought it out to be. While it doesn't capture the same level of mystery and interpretation that Yume Nikki has, it's clear that's not what the developers are going for, at least I'm just assuming here. They wanted a game with world building and lore. There is a lot of room to connect pieces within this game, and it makes you wonder if these people really do exist, or if they're nothing but dream people. Is our morning their nighttime? Do they even exist when we're awake? I don't know, and that's what makes this game so interesting to me. It's a Roblox game that really makes you want to keep searching and searching until you finally uncover every corner of this game, and despite the fact I've only covered the surface level dreams, I could see myself coming back to this game to explore the second layer of the dream world. Until then though, I hope you enjoyed watching this video, because if you did, subscribing would help a whole bunch. I certainly enjoyed making this video and hope to make more like it, albeit to an infrequent degree if I can. And yeah,